Talk to me nice, talk to me honestly. Look in my eyes, don't let it fall on me. Say you're a good guy, make me believe it. Don't wanna hear it, I wanna see it. See how rewind, when we rewind, feels so nice. We time, you I know how.
morning, everybody. How are we doing today? It's Thursday, FTG Thursday, of course, and I have my cup of reparations coffee in hand. I got it there. I'm just getting all this out of the way because I don't have a ton of articles up today, but I do have I have a few, and I want to talk a little bit about what's been going on with all this. I was thinking about this the other day, and someone put it in writing for me that this weird thing that the FBI and the Justice Department, and particularly Merrick Garland, keep talking about when they're talking about how our biggest threat right now to America is domestic terrorism from people who have racial motivations and white supremacy, and we got to talk, the general the other day talking about white rage and all this stuff. And I was thinking a while ago, I'm like, is this just kind of preemptive so that when one thing does happen among all these multitude of events that have been happening throughout the country for over a year, and not all of them related to, the Antifa or Black Lives Matter protests or like that, but just all the crime and all the things that are happening, are they just waiting for that one where they can go, see, I told you so? We have another Dylan Roof situation that's one every 8 to 10 years, or every time they'll have one event that they will rally around, or another Charlottesville or one of those. So, and then someone put it in writing here today, and so I got an article about that, because I was like, they're just trying to set up so they can say, oh, I told you so. It's a white supremacist, blah, blah, blah. When people are getting killed left and right, I probably shouldn't talk about that on YouTube. But anyway, all over the country, there's a crime wave that's just an insane amount of crime going on. And but they want their narrative one. They want that big narrative confirming event, and so they just keep talking about it so they can have oh, see, I told you so. Anyway, we'll get into that, and I don't have a ton of tabs open. We'll figure out some people to give the old FTG to. We'll figure out that. Let's do that right after the intro. Play the intro, Johnny. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, coming to you live from the Lucky Dog studio in a hidden location somewhere in the upper Midwest of the United States of America, it's a brother making his own way, but with all the wrong opinions. Welcome to the Morning Night Live with your host, yours truly, PDawgKnight. Alrighty then, stop that music, and I saw some other music pop up. Thank you, Black Hebrew Israelite.
That's right.
For the Deuce, first sponsor of the show today, Black Hebrew Israelite, who says, Bill Cosby is free and hoes mad.
That's right.
Yes, I almost forgot about Bill Cosby. I don't know how I forgot about him so soon, because obviously that's a very interesting situation that a lot of people want to talk about, or have been talking about. It's funny because people are mad about that. Hoes mad. And it's just this technicality that he's out on, and which says, you make a deal, you got to live by the deal, and the prosecutors in this case did not, and so he's out. No double jeopardy. Now, granted, think about it. It's only in the one case that they prosecuted him for. There are 70, 80 other accusers, but I don't know if any of them have any evidence. I mean, it's, most of these incidents happened years ago, and I have mixed feelings about it. I think if justice screws up, this is how due process works. No matter what you think of Bill Cosby and he had basically admitted he settled a $3 million suit with the woman prior to being, indicted on it in 2015, and then they've had. Did they have a mistrial or something? I know because he's served 3 years in prison so far, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I don't know. What are you gonna do? So Bill Cosby is free. I might even have an article on that. I didn't open it, but I might add that if I have some time. Anyway, let's say good morning to everybody in the chat. So far, we've got about. We got just under 20 people here. For 20 people, 15 likes. Y'all are on top of things, man. The likes are already up there. That's awesome. At least the like ratio. Hopefully more people show up to the show. But let's say good morning. First in the chat today is Somnambul Nation, who gets the bell. Thank you so much for being here. And also, you tweeted out the show before I did. I greatly appreciate that. Please share the stream. Angel Tibbs, Necrosaw Collins, Keeve, and Somnambul Nation have all already tweeted out the show. Fantastic. Also, good morning to Mr. Yes. Hello to you too. Also, BoschTube, who was almost first. You were close. You were second. No, third. So, no, you were third, BoschTube, but close enough. Good morning, Jonathan Peterson. Nice to see you. Advocatus Dabbler, Devil's Advocate, Select a Boy. Yeah, also, boy. Good morning, Lord Stanhope, Kiever Dam, Jaeger Pony, my favorite Canadian. Nunya Beeswax is in the house. Let's see, who else? Dumb Beard, what's up? T-Ball, good morning. Attack Alpaca. And I think that might be, is that everybody in the chat? Oh, Bishop's in the house. Nice to see you back. I thought Democrats got over being racist in the 60s. No, they still want to classify everybody by race, and that's really the problem. Also, good morning, Jaded Emerald and Black Hebrew Israelite.
That's right.
And Amy in Connecticut, nice to see you back. Infamous One, DI Freighter Watcher, Furry Kitten, and everyone else who shows up. If you make it into the chat, I will say hello, and I'll try to make sure I say hi to everybody at some point during the show. All right. So the article I was talking about in the intro here is this one from PJ Media. PJ Media is on fire today. I got a bunch of PJ Media articles, but this one I found interesting. Are false flag events real, and when is the next one? This is by someone named Kevin Downey Jr., who writes at PJ Media quite a bit. What is a false flag event? A false flag event is something that's done while trying to make it look like someone else did it. Most people believe the phrase, quote, false flag, end quote, goes back to the days when pirates flew false flags to trick a ship into thinking it was friendly before attacking the ship. Now let's talk about some false flag events in history. The Nazis knew how to throw a good false flag event. They very probably burned their Reichstag building, Germany's parliament, and blamed a feeble-minded Dutch commie using this event to round up Stalin Pinkos, who posed a serious threat at the time. And August 31, 1939, Germany staged a few Polish attacks on the Polish-German border, including a bogus attack on a radio station. These were attacks made to look as though Poland attacked Germany. Germany used these false flag events to attack Poland the next day, starting World War II. Now, has the United States created any false flags? What a silly question. Of course, yes. In Iran and in Vietnam for sure. January 6th? Maybe. The jury's still out. I'm not saying there was or wasn't a false flag event, but I don't believe that the debunked myth about BLM being there has been debunked. BML activist John Sullivan was there. He shot the video of Ashley Babbitt's murder. I used that word. He made $90,000 off the video, and the feds took it away. Because he's been arrested too. Anyway, Emmanuel Jackson was there, but we haven't heard a lot about his political leanings. Tucker Carlson has suggested that the FBI was undercover in the Capitol. Lefty TV news shows with a fraction of Tucker's audience obediently attacked him. It's not, and now this is the writer saying, it's not my place to say yes. It was definitely an FBI false flag situation. Time will tell. In the meantime, the FBI has gone after the, quote, insurgency bingo squad, end quote. They've arrested a 69-year-old woman, even though a photo shows a Capitol cop holding the door for her, and a 69-year-old man from New York City, Get a rope. Who's the 69-year-old man from New York City? Yeah. Okay. Joseph Bolanos. Well, I'll leave that article open. I hadn't really heard much about him. I'd heard about the 69-year-old woman that was they arrested yesterday. Did they do one on her too? Yes, they did. This is from FBI ridiculed another MAGA mom arrested walking into the Capitol snapping selfies. Yeah, that was the one we talked about yesterday. Anyway, every 4 years. So the new type of false flag, now there's a new type of false flag event. We also have a situation in which a political party with the help of the new media takes an actual event and creates a narrative that isn't real. Oh, what might that be? When the Pinkos were burning American cities over the death of career. Okay, this is, okay, just so you know, this is a very editorialized article, and some of you may agree and some of you may like, language, whatever. But anyway, when the Pinkos were burning American cities over the death of career thug George Floyd, not my choice of words, although he kind of was, the left managed to turn some of the focus to Breonna Taylor, who had been shot 2 months earlier by police in a crossfire with Taylor's boyfriend. Internet rumors became fact. Quote, Taylor was shot in her bed for being black, end quote. No, she was not. Breonna Taylor is dead because of her poor choices in men. She allowed an ex-boyfriend to use her home and car to sell drugs. Her new boyfriend fired his gun illegally through the front door and hit a cop when police tried to serve a search warrant. Cops fired back and Breonna Taylor was killed in the crossfire. Race had nothing to do with Taylor's untimely death, but since when is personal responsibility an attribute of the far left? Also, why waste an opportunity to smear cops even though they were shooting in self-defense? Breonna's death was used to vilify cops as systemically racist and to further the lefty agenda of not holding certain minorities responsible for crimes. So what's next? Now, this is the part where I was thinking, what is going on with our Justice Department? Also, there's guys that they talk about Ron DeSantis a lot. They talk about him. Anyway, whispering Joe Biden's administration released its national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. I'll open that one too. I'm going to open all these links in this article that you can look at later. Not surprisingly, Antifa and BLM didn't get any attention, even though they gutted cities across the country last year and are still rioting in Portland. Biden focuses the crosshairs on white supremacists.
You're fucking a white male!
All 5,000 of them who committed or planned a total of 6 acts of terrorism in 2020. In other words, he's ignoring the real threat of Antifa and BLM and is trying to blame domestic terrorism on a handful of white boogeymen. This is alarming when you consider that an armed mob of black supremacists in Tulsa threatened to kill everything white in sight. A black supremacist recently shot a Florida police officer in the head. He was a member of 3 black extremist groups, one of which was called the Not Effing Around Coalition. We read about him the other day. He was arrested in Georgia on land owned by NFAC in a treehouse. He was hiding in a treehouse full of weapons. Let's call it a compound because that's what they'd call it if a white guy had shot the cop. Biden's constant regurgitation of the myth of white supremacy isn't just a lie. It's akin to waving a red blanket in front of a bull. He's urging black violence against cops and white people, allowing BLM and Antifa to attack with impunity sends a 1-2 message. Quote, go fight, you won't be held responsible, end quote. Biden knows that eventually a white person will retaliate, and voila, we have a white supremacist problem. I call it a modified false flag situation. So that is kind of the point I was making. Is this constant talk of, this, what do they call it? The national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. Is that bait Or is it just something so that when something finally does happen, when they find their perfect incident, that they could say, see, now we have more reason to round up these people who might support the guy with the funny hair. Because those are the guys who tried to destroy our democracy at the insurrection. So let's look. Here's the national strategy for countering domestic terrorism. Shall we take a look? How long is this? It's a little bit long. Oh, it's really long. It's really long. This is 30 pages, this. Let's just check the forward though. And this is a message from the President of the United States. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger here. Let's put it on the screen first, and we'll move it over so you can see it. Here's a message from the President. And I'm not going to talk like the President because I'll put myself to sleep. Too often over the past several years, American communities have felt the wrenching pain of domestic terrorism. Black church members slaughtered during their Bible study in Charleston. Dylan Roof. Let's see. What was the date of that incident? June 17th, 2015. June 17th, 2015. Now, it was a horrible, horrible event. But if you got to go back to June 15th or 17th, 2015 for an example, when there have been, let's see, 6 years. So there's probably been 42,000. No. Take that down. There's probably been 84,000 people murdered since then in the United States of America. Do you think they're just reaching a little bit? A synagogue in Pittsburgh targeted for supporting immigrants. A gunman spraying bullets at an El Paso Walmart targeting Latinos. It goes now. He picks out those three incidents. Now, granted, this was probably before the event. The guy who'd been traveling around the East Coast murdering people because they are white, or all the incidents against Asians and Jewish people, not done by white supremacists, so mind you. But he has these three events, right? That just, three man bites dog events as his anecdotal evidence. But anyway, it goes against everything our country strives to stand for in the world, and it poses a direct challenge to America's national security, our democracy, and our national unity. What national unity? I don't see anything that the administration is doing to promote national unity. I don't think they want national unity. They want us versus them. And that's what they seem to be getting. Although, unfortunately, when they want us versus them, they're getting more of them killing them. Seems like it. I don't see a lot of the us's killing people all over the country. This national strategy for countering domestic terrorism lays out a comprehensive approach to addressing the threat while safeguarding bedrock American civil rights and civil liberties, values that make us who we are as a nation. Americans hold a wide array of beliefs. That is part of what makes the United States such a diverse and extraordinary nation. Preserving and safeguarding constitutionally protected expression and freedom of association are national security priorities. Are they now? Are they? That's funny because it seems like you guys are teaming up with certain tech companies to spy on people and filter out wrong thing without having to do it yourselves. Weird that you're saying that preserving and safeguarding constitutionally protected expression and freedom of association are national security priorities. I beg to differ. Anyway, let me continue. Our rights and our historic liberties are an intrinsic part of what makes us and what makes America strong. So this strategy is narrowly tailored to focus specifically on addressing violence and the factors that lead to violence, violence that violates the law, threatens public safety, and infringes on the free expression of ideas. Again, I don't believe you when you say that you actually care about the free expression of ideas. Sorry, I just meant to center that. Thank you. Good morning, TOS. What's up, my friend? Welcome to the Morning Night Live, and thank you for subscribing this morning. Also, good morning to Rydeos. Nice to see you. See anybody else drop in while I was babbling? Nope. It looks okay. I'm caught up, I think. So let's see. Wow, this is Joe Biden. I'm telling you. Now, we cannot ignore this threat or wish it away. Now, it's weird because nothing addressing violence and the factors that lead to violence. Well, what are you doing to end violence right now? Because there's a lot of violence going on. Violence is nearing all-time highs, or definitely up from years past. Oh, you don't mean that kind of violence? Oh, never mind. This is the imagined violence that you're hoping would happen after those people that January 6th did their thing, they had their little riot, which is not uncommon in Washington, D.C. if you really look at the things that have happened, although they did end up having some obviously some of them got in fights with police and shit, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, he says, we cannot ignore this threat or wish it away. Preventing domestic terrorism. Again, they're calling those people terrorists too. They're calling Ashley Babbitt a domestic terrorist. Really? The unarmed selfie insurrection. The unarmed selfie insurrection. Domestic terrorists. Really? Were the people who tried to breach the White House domestic terrorists? Oh, you forgot about that, Joe? Oh, that's right, because you weren't in office yet. They had to protect the president. They had to take the president out of the White House into the bunkers underneath the tunnels in Washington, D.C. because a threat to the breach of the White House. They set a guard shack on fire. They set a church on fire. That wasn't also domestic terrorism? Because that's what I think they're very similar situations. How many people have been arrested for that? How many people sat in jail waiting for trial for that? Not too many? Interesting. Have we heard in the news whether or not any of those people have already been convicted of their attempted breach of the White House, where the leader of the free world lives and works? Oh, I get it. We don't really care about that president. Did they arrest anybody for trying to break into the Supreme Court during the Kavanaugh situation? I don't think so. Anyway, thank you, Furry Kitten, who dropped a bullet in the tip jar. Thank you, a 223. Are you telling me no one else has donated already? Shocked, I tell you, shocked. Well, you are actually. Who did? A Black Hebrew Israelite did one during the intro. Thank you again, but thank you for sponsoring the show. And Furry Kitten, you are the new Streamlabs Superstar Sponsor of the Day. Thank you for sponsoring this show. Yes, you may. If people who would like to sponsor the show, you can do that through Streamlabs and or YouTube SuperChats, Venmo, Cashapp. They're all in the description down below. And the Streamlabs thing pops up there every once in a while. In fact, right there. See, Streamlabs Superstar Sponsors. super chat link is right there. You can pop that right in there's chat there and it'll take you to where it's supposed to go. All right. Let's see. We cannot ignore or wish to thread away. Preventing domestic terrorism and reducing the factors that fuel it demand a multifaceted response across the federal government and beyond. Now, there's where I get a little nervous. Good morning, MC.
Stop. Hammer time.
A multifaceted response across the federal government and beyond. Interesting choice of words there. You mean how they're using private tech firms to spy on us because they can do it with impunity because you've already given them all your information? Huh. Interesting. That includes working with our critical partners in state, local, tribal, and territorial governments, and here's that word, and in civil society, the private sector, academia, and local communities, as well as with our allies and foreign partners. So that teaming up with the private sector, though, that's an interesting one. And we've talked about this quite often, how there's another name for that because the private sector can do things that the government isn't allowed to do. Censorship. They can censor you. They can tell you whether or not you're allowed to say what you're saying, because even though they're just platforms, they can tell you what is allowed on their platform. It's not like a phone or anything where, if you use the phone, that's your phone, and they can't tell you what to say on your phone except the fact that the NSA has ways of monitoring you. Interesting, but what's that word again, people? I know you know what it is. Do I have to go all Mr. Rogers on you for that one? We have to take both short-term steps to counter the very real threats of today and longer-term measures to diminish the emerging threats of tomorrow. What do you think a longer-term measure would be? Perhaps re-education? Interesting. This is a project that should unite all Americans. Oh, Joe. How sweet. How sweet. Together we must affirm that domestic terrorism has no place in our society. We must work to root out the hatreds with an S that can too often drive violence. Well, I'm not quite figuring out what you're talking about here, Joe. Because they like to say, oh, hate crimes are way up. No, reporting of hate crimes is up. And about 2/3 of them are false. Oh, false flag. We were just talking about that, right? And we must recommit to defend and protect those basic freedoms which belong to all Americans in equal measure and which are not only the foundation of our democracy, our representative republic, they are our enduring advantage in the world. Well, as far as our strength, our strength, not diversity, our strength is that we are one of the very few nations where we have this diverse, diverse, not only of peoples, but of mindsets and things like that, and that have survived this long being that way, because diversity doesn't always play well in other countries. I'm just saying, or hasn't. I mean, we've kind of set the example for the world. Now, let's just do a quick on this introduction too, because this is also fascinating. Well, no, let's wait. Let's skip this. I should do it just to spend a whole day on this thing. domestic terrorism is not new to the United States. It has over centuries taken many American lives and spilled much American blood, especially in the communities deliberately and viciously targeted on the basis of hatred and bigotry. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell they're talking about. Oh, I see. Okay, so they're going all the way back to the Civil War. After the Civil War, for example, the Ku Klux Klan waged a campaign of terror to intimidate black voters and their white supporters and deprive them of political power, killing and injuring untold numbers of Americans. The Klan and other white supremacists continued to terrorize black Americans and other minorities in the decades that follows. Now, here it is. In recent years, we have seen a resurgence of this and related threats in one horrific incident after another. The shooting and killing of 23 people in a retail store in El Paso, the vehicular killing of a peaceful protester in Charlottesville, the shooting and killing of 3 people at the Garlic Festival in Gilroy, the arson committed at a mosque in Victoria, Texas, the appalling rise in violence and xenophobia directed against Asian Americans, the surge in anti-Semitism, and more. Now, again, with the dog bites man events, when there are, and I don't bring up that city that everyone wants to bring up. I'm not talking about that, but what I'm saying is across America, we have crime that's killing people in areas where it had been going down for years. Because we want to defund the police, or we want to reimagine law enforcement. That's a form of domestic terrorism in your neighborhoods. It's amazing, the appalling violence and because of its appalling violence and xenophobia. Well, is there what xenophobia directed against Asian Americans? Who's committing the crimes? People where they live, not people from someone. It's not people coming from somewhere else to attack these people. Okay, that's the other thing. So calling this domestic terrorism when it's actually just crime in the neighborhoods in which people live, whether it's directed towards them because they are Asian or not. You know, for example, in the cities where they were talking about the Asian hate crimes against Asians in San Francisco and Los Angeles and New York City, wasn't there also a rise of crime against African Americans or people who live in those same neighborhoods? Aren't there more murders and more drive-by shootings and more shootings and mass shootings and all that other stuff? So was it just because more Asians got caught up in that crime because they happen to live in those areas? Or is it actually because of Asian hate? I'm really curious about that. In those areas where there's supposedly the surge in Asian hate crimes, or is it just a surge in crimes in an area where Asians live? I personally believe it's the latter. But it makes a great narrative. And guess what? It's not a bunch of white supremacists out there beating up or hitting Asian people. It's people who live in that area. Because there's, same with anti-Semitism. There's not a bunch of terrorists coming from, northern Pennsylvania into Brooklyn or into Bronx or wherever the higher Jewish population in New York City. It's not someone coming out there doing a terrorist attack on those people. It's people in the neighborhood beating people up. They're not coming. A terrorist would come from somewhere else, wouldn't they? So is it domestic terrorism or is it just domestic crime? This one is easy. The communists are calling Christians terrorists. Not a new thing. Same shit in Soviet Union and China. Yeah, kind of. Good morning, Asia Research Directorate, by the way. Nice to see you. I would say these incidents they're talking about, I'd say it's crime. But again, they have a narrative to uphold here. Domestic terrorist attacks in the United States also have been committed frequently by those imposed through their government institutions. Have they now? Defined frequently. So he's going, here he goes. He goes back to 1995. Calculate the years, please. 26 years ago. Or 26 years ago. In the largest single act of domestic terrorism in U.S. history, an anti-government violent extremist detonated a bomb at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, killing 168 people, including 19 children. Well, and you know what? That's not even the worst terrorist attack or domestic political attack in the United States since the Civil War, because apparently January 6th is, even though this guy killed 106 people, including 19 children. In 2016, an anti-authority violent extremist ambush shot and killed 5 police officers in Dallas. Whoa. That's an interesting description. An anti-authority violent extremist? You mean that the black fellow that was inspired by the Young Turks? That is some selective usage of adjectives. Holy shit. In 2017, a lone gunman wounded 4 people at a congressional baseball practice. Well, at least, now we're getting into the Bernie Sanders guys. At least they name them. Interesting. It's funny. Wounded 4 people at a baseball practice. Oh my God. And just months ago, on January 6, 2021, Americans witnessed an unprecedented attack at a core institution of our democracy, the U.S. Congress. Unprecedented? Really now? That's the first time anyone's gone into the Capitol building to protest. Unprecedented? Because I can think of events. I can think of the Capitol being bombed. I can think of the Senate offices being bombed. I can think of the time in the 1950s when 4 Congress people were shot from the gallery above the House floor. I can name a time when Nancy Pelosi's office was occupied by eco-terrorists, activists, cheered on by Alexander Ocasio-Cortez. Unprecedented attack against a core institution. Really? Some aspects of the federal government's response also are not new. During Reconstruction, the U.S. Department of Justice was created and immediately focused on prosecuting and convicting hundreds of Klan members in connection with their vicious campaign of domestic terrorism. In the 1980s, Joint Terrorism Task Force, now a nationwide staple of federal, state, local, and tribal and territorial law enforcement cooperation against all form of terrorism, were created to maximize information sharing and address full range of terrorism threats, both domestic and international. While domestic terrorism roots and elements of our response may be long-standing domestic terrorism is both persistent and evolving, and according to the U.S. intelligence community and law enforcement, elevated in the threat it now poses. Again, they are reaching so hard to make January 6th a series of events as opposed to a one-off riot. The intelligent law enforcement communities have articulated publicly the threat posed by domestic terrorism today. That articulation draws on the comprehensive assessment of the threat that President Biden requested on his first full day in office. Oh, first day in office. Really good, Joe. That assessment was conducted by appropriate elements of the U.S. government and provided to the president. It was also released publicly in a summary form on March 17, 2021. Today's domestic terrorists espouse a range of violent ideological motivations, including racial and ethnic bigotry. So, Oh, and hatred, as well as anti-government or anti-authority sentiment. I'm still fascinated that when they describe the also this guy that shot the 5 officers in Dallas. The description of him is precious. I want to go back to that. 2016, an anti-authority violent extremist. Some might say he was also kind of affiliated with the Black Lives Matter protests. But he definitely was a listener of the Young Turks. He was a left-wing anti-authority violent extremist. Black man. But they're talking about what did they say here? Espousing a range of violent ideological motivation, including racial or ethnic bigotry. So the one in 2016, racial ethnic bigotry against white people. Oklahoma City, he was anti-authority. He was mad about Waco and Ruby Ridge. The guy at the congressional baseball practice was bigotry towards white Republican male people who play baseball and whatnot. That was a political ideology, completely political. And then January 6th, people were mad that their candidate lost and the rally got out of hand. And some went inside the building and left 2 hours later after taking a bunch of selfies and pictures and harming nobody. Well, I can't say harming nobody. The idiots fighting the police outside, they should have all been arrested. But the ones who were just let into the building and kind of paraded through and just took some pictures and stuff like that, who were blissfully unaware of what was going on outside. And in fact, people who had come to the Capitol Mall, whatever, Capitol area later, said they had no idea what had happened until they went back and saw it on the news, because there were tens of thousands of people there, and not all of them even saw that little short, that part where they were fighting with the police. How long do you think that lasted? 40 minutes, 30 minutes? I know the people who went into the Capitol building were there. They said they were in and out within 2 hours, and the Congress went back to doing their business eventually. Right? They didn't stop doing their certification of the Electoral College that day, did they? No. So very odd. Oh my gosh. So I want to skip down to here. Today, here's what they consider today's threat. This is not that long, and then we'll move on. Starting at page 7. Domestic terrorism poses a serious and evolving threat. A provision of federal law defines domestic terrorism as activities that involve acts dangerous to human life that are in violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state, appear to be intended to intimidate or coerce a civilian population, to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion, or to affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping, and occur primarily within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. Over time, domestic terrorism threats in the United States have ebbed and flowed, reflected different motivating ideologies, and demanded varying government responses. You know what's interesting? Does the domestic terrorism of Antifa, because they're by definition terrorist. Okay, I don't care what you think that they're. Oh no, they're just anti-fascist. No, they intimidate and do violence to people which they have a political problem with. Okay, and then also that the middle group of BLM, not the people who are just there to protest what they believe is rampant police brutality. okay? But the ones in the middle who are just there to break shit and intimidate people, and he'll walk by at a restaurant and start screaming at people's faces with a megaphone in their face and knock their drinks over and intimidate people. That's terrorism. That's not protesting. That's terrorism. It's a tactic to intimidate people to come to your side, which I think, personally, if someone comes and bothers me while I'm eating, if they're having their little protest and they start fucking with my shit, one, I'm a large man who doesn't take shit. And two, it's not going to bring me to come to, oh, well, yeah, you know, you're over here screaming at the microphone or a megaphone in my face and tipping my drink over and taking food off my table. That convinces me I should be on your side. You freaking idiots. Anyway. Today's domestic terrorism threat, as assessed comprehensively by American intelligence and law enforcement professionals in early 2021, involves a complex mix of elements. According to this assessment, one key aspect of today's domestic terrorism threat emerges from racially or ethnically motivated violent extremists and networks whose racial, ethnic, or religious hatred leads them toward violence. Doesn't seem like it's, well, it's not being specific yet, but you know what they mean. These actors have different motivations, but many focus their violence toward the same segment or segments of the American community, whether persons of color, immigrants, Jews, Muslims, or other religious minorities, women and girls, LGBTQI individuals, or others. Now, fascinating. They notice how they check all the boxes. What's missing from that list, though? Okay, I'm going to read the list again, and you tell me what's missing from the list. Good morning, Katie. Nice to see ya. What's missing from this list, okay? Many focus their violence toward the same segment or segments of the American community, whether persons of color, immigrants, Jews, Muslims, other religious minorities, women and girls, LGBTQI plus individuals, or others. So there's something missing there, because that pretty much sums up all of American society, except, oh, Bishop, you got 2/3 of it. How about,
You're fucking a white male!
everybody but white males? So they only see, they're only focusing on, now remember, we just had a guy who they finally caught that was going around, I can't remember what state it was in, but was going around, was it in Georgia and Florida? Might have been Florida, Georgia. He was going around killing people, shooting people, not killing them all, but shooting them for sure. He went on a spree, and his goal was to kill as many white people as possible. Is that included in this? I don't know. Now, that certainly fits the first part. Where they say these actors have different motivations, but many focus their violence toward the same, well, a segment of American community. Now, here, let me continue. Their insistence on violence can at times be explicit. And where, again, they make it sound like this is, like it's been happening constantly, and the only thing I see happening constantly is the rise in crime and murders around the United States. I mean, in every major city, especially, densely populated urban areas, where you're seeing a rise in murders and killing and whatnot. Thank you, Furry Kitten, the $3.99. Was that a Charles Barkley one? I got to play that one again because I can't remember. Is that the Charles Barkley? Yes, it is. That's one of my favorites. Who says, do you remember all those 300 arrested, some armed invaders during the Kavanaugh selection, or AOC bringing donuts to the Green protesters occupying Pelosi's office? Seems to be a double standard towards the definition of insurrection. That's exactly what I'm saying, Furry Kitten. The people that were occupying Nancy Pelosi's office, I didn't remember the 300 arrested, some armed invaders. Did they prosecute any of those people during the Kavanaugh selection, though? I bet they didn't. I bet they released them all. My guess is, if anyone knows, let me know. Or if you have a link to an article, let me know, because I don't think they prosecuted any of those people. I think they let them all go. Interesting. So anyway, their insistence on violence can at times be explicit. Really? Where? When? It's pretty rare. These are, now, because they, the three events they brought up at the beginning. The one woman who was shot or killed in Charlottesville. There was all kinds of violence in Charlottesville that was not initiated by the tiki torch dickheads or the people who wanted to see the statues not taken down or whatnot. The people who were there to protest the statues being taken down. The violence in that day, it's funny. They bring up that asshole who drove his car into a crowd and killed one person, right? Which is awful. But they don't talk about any of the other violence that day, which the violence that day, and I watched live streams. I was watching multiple live streams that day of that event that day. And the violence on that day was initiated by the people protesting the protesters. In other words, Antifa. When the police or whatever, and the police weren't doing anything. There were little scraps all over the place. But the police, when that rally was done, instead of allowing the people to disperse, they pointed them all into one direction, into the people who were protesting the protesters. And the violence was started by the people protesting the protesters. But the only thing you can name about Charlottesville is that one woman died because of a guy who drove his car into the crowd. Do you remember do you remember anything else about Charlottesville if you weren't paying attention that day? That's the only thing you know about it, and they talk about that as if it was the only act of violence that day. There's all kinds of violence that day. It looked like the Proud Boys ran into the Antifa in Portland. It looked like one of those kind of days. There were people fighting all over the place. There were people shooting guns. There were people using aerosol cans and lighters as blow torches. There were scraps. There were people attacked at a parking ramp. In fact, there was one thing. The one that I remember the most is when there was a kid who was attacked at a parking ramp, right? Or they showed that these guys beating up these young black men in a parking ramp, and you only saw the video of that, and this is proof that they're out there just to beat up black people. What they didn't show you is that the kids that were on the ground being beat up about 10 seconds earlier charged those guys with baseball bats and were swinging baseball bats at them, and the guys basically jujitsu'd them to the ground and beat them up for a few seconds until they were not a threat, and then the guys left. The only part of that little video you saw was those kids getting beat up for 5 seconds, or getting punched on the ground. When in reality, they came and attacked them with baseball bats. The guys knocked them, punched them to the ground, and said, "Let's get out of here. Just, leave." So it's funny. It's crazy. Anyway, but it's funny. They give you these three events: Dylan Roof, Charlottesville. Oh, and the guy down in was it San Antonio, the Walmart guy. You know why they give you those examples and why you hear them over and over and over and over? Because that's kind of all they got. But they want you to fear a certain element. It's funny because the other examples they gave here the Steve Scalise, the congressional baseball players being shot, the 5 cops being shot in Dallas, that was the wrong side. They're not talking about that side in this report, which is fascinating. It can also be at times less explicit, lurking in ideologies rooted in a perception of the superiority of the white race that call for violence in furtherance of perverse and abhorrent notions of racial purity or cleansing. Where? Now in this, now that, this black guy in Dallas that you talked about shooting 5 cops, is that included here? Why did they mention that without mentioning anything about his race or his motivations? That's weird. Or the guy who shot the congressional baseball guys. That's some white on white crime right there. What does that have to do with, why did they use those examples? Oh, they needed more examples of domestic terrorism, but if they give too many details, you might actually know what the hell they're talking about. Good God. Another key component of the threat comes from anti-government or anti-authority violent extremists. The significant component of today's threat includes self-proclaimed militias and militia violent extremists who take steps to violently resist government authority or facilitate the overthrow of the U.S. government based on perceived overreach. Anarchist violent extremists who violently oppose all forms of capitalism. Well, that's Antifa, isn't it? Corporate globalization and governing institutions, which they perceive as harmful to society, sovereign citizen, violent extremists who believe they are immune from government authority and laws, and any other individual group who engages in violence or incites imminent violence in opposition to legislative, regulatory, and or other actions taken by government. That's a frickin' mouthful. So they don't like the militia guys, the militia movement guys. But again, what have they done? Where have you seen anything from them lately that made the news? And you know, if they actually do something, oh, damn Skippy, it'll be on the news. Thank you for a kitten for the news. As far as I could find at the Kavanaugh hearings, 300 plus arrested and detained, no custodial or non-custodial or sentence. Yeah, I don't think anyone was sentenced. I don't think anyone was charged with anything. They were detained. That was it. And then they let them go. That was, I think, the DC police who did that. They have one of those Soros mayors, or not Soros mayors, Soros city attorney or whatever they do there in DC. Yeah, thank you, Furry Kitten. Appreciate it. Thank you for sponsoring the show. Yeah, this is hilarious. In opposition to legislature, okay. In some cases, individuals may develop their own idiosyncratic justifications for violence that defy ready categorization. Well, I know they say Antifa is just an idea, not really people. So who knows? Good Lord. Hey, fellas, time to come out right now. I am a militia. Well, there you go. All right. Didn't realize there was a militia designation authority. Apparently there is. It's amazing. All right. Self-proclaimed militias as opposed to those militias that are proclaimed by an outside source. Yeah. Right. Like, yeah, well, they also, again, they like to talk about the Klan and talk about the white supremacist groups. I'm still not sure how many of those there are. I mean, there might be, like I said, maybe 5,000 out of 330 million people. Anyway, domestic terrorists have, particularly in recent years, often been lone actors or small groups of informally aligned individuals who mobilize to violence with little or no clear organized structure or direction. These individuals often consume... Okay, here we go. These individuals often consume material deliberately disseminated to recruit individuals to causes that attempt to provide a sense of belonging and fulfillment, however false that sense might be. 4chan. Their ideologies can be fluid, evolving, and overlapping, and they can, in some instances, connect and intersect with conspiracy theories and other forms of disinformation and misinformation. The often solitary and at times rapid nature of such mobilization to violence poses a particularly acute challenge to law enforcement and to others seeking to prevent, disrupt, and deter domestic terrorism. So, if you have wrongthink, you might be a threat. Ooh. These elements combine to form a complex and shifting domestic terrorism threat landscape and create significant challenges for law enforcement, especially on internet-based communication platforms. Here they go. Such as social media, file upload sites, and end-to-end encrypted platforms. All of these elements can combine to amplify threats to public safety. This is the domestic terrorism threat America faces today, one with the distinctive imprint of today's digital age, as well as long-standing roots in domestic terrorism challenges throughout our country's history. Tackling that threat comprehensively and it persistently demands appreciating both its historical lineage and its distinctly modern form. All right, so you can check out the rest of that. It's that's all we're going to read on that. But it certainly sounds like they are. It's funny how they avoid certain terminology and give you the examples that are in such an ambiguous way to make it sound like they're not talking about what they are. It makes it sound like they're talking about something different. So it's pretty wild there. All right, let's get into some other things here. Oh, the one thing they don't talk about, but there's Kevin Downey again on PJ Media. One thing they don't seem to talk about, and I don't know, this is an interesting way to phrase this, but he's asking, can we talk about black supremacists yet? The FBI realized the true threat from black supremacy groups, sweetly referred to as black identity extremists, because it sounds better, several years ago. The word supremacy is reserved for white extremists. The FBI report leaked in 2017 stated that black supremacy groups, not white, were the new rising domestic terror threat. In 2019, the FBI considered black supremacists a bigger threat than white supremacist groups and even Al-Qaeda. The same report stated, where's that report? Oh, there it is. I'll give you both. I'll just give you the links to both of those. Already open, and it'll be in the tabs in the description down below. The same report stated the FBI believed white supremacy would dwindle in size. They believed animal rights groups were also a bigger problem. Someone might want to tell President Biden. Well, does this constant narrative, especially the anti-racist or anti-white narrative, or the white rage or white supremacy or white fragility, all this talk, is it going to create a whole new generation of white kids are going to be like, fuck that, I'm not that, and if you don't stop it, I'm going to kick your ass and prove you that we are, whatever they wanted to say. Anyway, the report stated that black supremacy groups are likely to target civilian and government entities that are perceived as oppressors. Haven't seen any of that over the last year. Right? Including but not limited to law enforcement officers. The U.S. government, members of rival black extremist groups. Oh, we've seen a little bit of that. Although because there's been the Antifa versus BLM thing going on in some places. You heard about that, right? The BLM people are sick of the Antifa people breaking shit, because a lot of the BLM people are really out there generally just to protest. And then you get the little, the black clad white you know, college kids or whatever they think they are. They think they're revolutionaries, and they come out and start breaking shit. And the Black Lives Matter people are like, hey, stop doing that shit. That's not what we're here for. And all you're doing is making us look bad. That happens. We've seen examples of that. But that's not what this article is about. The report stated that black supremacy groups are likely to target civilian and government entities that are perceived as oppressors, including but not limited to law enforcement officers, U.S. governments, members of the rival black supremacist groups, and individuals based on race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, and religion. Asians and Jews, maybe? Anyway, the report continued, quote, the FBI judges some racially motivated violent extremists, RMVEs, perception of police brutality against African Americans served as justification for premeditated retaliatory violence against law enforcement in 2016. Oh, you don't say. We didn't notice. Hello, Renee Miette. I didn't see you there. Hello, Check Your Logic. Didn't see you there. Orthol. Now here's an example. Orthol Wallace, I think we just talked about him, was just arrested for shooting Daytona Beach police officer Jason Rayner in the head. Wallace has ties to 3 black supremacy groups, I can say it now because it's deep in the Not Fucking Around Coalition, NFAC, which CNN once spoke of glowingly, the New Black Panthers, and the Huey P. Newton Gun Club. Now, 2 of those 3 have been around for years, and the fact that they're a member of the Huey P. Newton Gun Club doesn't bother me. I mean, that's just, you know, black guns matter, okay? The New Black Panthers, and the NFAC, Anyway, he was arrested in a treehouse owned by the NFAC, which some, like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, might call a compound. And there's that there. No statement yet from Joe Biden regarding the shooting, the suspect, or the black supremacist compound. Gropey Joe Biden, or Dopey Joe Biden, or Sleepy Joe Biden, or whatever you want to call him, had a lot to say about the 10-year-old Tulsa riot. It's not 10 years old. It was, that was, yeah, it's not 100-year-old Tulsa riot. That's what they meant. In which 2 inquiries agreed that 36 people were killed, 10 white and 26 black. The one thing he didn't talk about was the 15 or so black supremacist groups, many heavily armed, walking around Tulsa chanting, "Whose streets? Our streets." Biden also failed to mention the speaker who told an armed group, "We kill everything white in sight." That doesn't seem like a very inclusive message. Make no mistake, Biden didn't forget. Biden didn't forget to mention black supremacy groups. He is steering attention away from them, blaming phantom hordes of white nationalist rednecks for the domestic dangers we see in the U.S., despite evidence that black supremacists are armed, angry, and willing to shoot cops when they get a chance. Friends of Daytona policeman Jason Rayner have established a GoFundMe. There's, I'll even put that in the links today, just because I'm feeling generous. But anyway, I'm more interested in the dude that, there was the dude that actually was going around, he shot I think it was 8 white people, he just wanted to shoot white people. So he did. He went out and shot people. That guy was going around. Thank you, Black Hebrew Israelite, through Streamlabs this time, with the Deuce, who says, I know this is off topic, but Biden lies, water is wet.
That's right.
Cosby was set up with a bad faith deal to give up his Fifth Amendment rights. Then his successor used this to go after Bill because their case was so weak, there was no evidence to support.
You're a lying dog face, right. Tony.
Whoops.
That's right.
There we go. That's what I meant to hit. Yeah, that Cosby case. Problem is, he did in the civil case, which they used he wasn't supposed to use it. They had a deal. He kind of sort of admitted to what the lady was saying and then settled the civil case, but the prosecutor made the deal that they wouldn't use that in the any criminal case, and then they end up using a criminal case, and then 3 years into his prison sentence, they're like, hey, whoa, that the judge is like, did y'all have an agreement? I swear that somewhere in here it says y'all had an agreement, and you prosecutors kind of fucked this up, and so now we gotta let this asshole go because y'all fucked it up. Oh boy, people on Twitter are having a meltdown over Bill. It's a mixed bag, but mostly a meltdown over Bill Cosby. And I wasn't really even going to talk about it because my details on that case are not as good as they could be. But you know, and oh my God, a black man was released from prison. I didn't think they did that. Anyway, but again, he's very wealthy. But hey, you have Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. And if they make that deal and they don't follow the deal, judge's going to say, hey, you blew this because you had a case, but now you don't. And now I wonder, it's going to be interesting. I think Bill Cosby would be very smart to just let it drop. But is there an opportunity now for Bill Cosby to go back and sue the state for his imprisonment time? Because now, in all practicality, he's an innocent man, even if he's not. And I don't know if he is or not, because there's no way to find evidence of any of the things he's been accused of, other than his, I wouldn't necessarily call it a confession, but it kind of was. You know what I'm saying? Good morning, Jim Beam. How you doing? Anyway, all right. What else do I got here? Let's just round out the news for this morning. Okay, so this is by the way, in the articles, I do have these. They were linked in that last article when this was back from 2017 when FBI cites black extremists as a new domestic terror threat. That article's in here. Also from Newsweek, FBI ranks black identity extremists bigger threat than Al-Qaeda white supremacists, according to leaked documents. It's interesting that this was once said. Now, granted, this was back when the guy with the funny hair was president, but still, I mean, the FBI director and so on and so forth are a lot of the same people. Also, I do have a link. It'll be in the tabs. The GoFundMe for Jason Rayners. They're still, looks like they're still taking donations there. All right, let's move on real quick. Thank you, Furry Kitten, the prolific sponsor of the day. Thank you so much. For another bullet, aka a 223. Let's see if I transfer this over. In the last 15 years working security, I've encountered 3 white supremacist marches, 2 EDL, and another against child rape. All other threats have been from PETA, ALF, which is what is that? Animal Liberation Federation or something like that, climate activists, and Momentum, British militant socialists. No surprise there. I swear those groups are more likely to wreak havoc on your life than any of the white supremacists. Although, in theory, the white supremacists should be wreaking havoc on my life every day. I should be cowering in fear as I drive my F-150 down the street that I would encounter a bunch of white supremacists who want to pull me out of my truck and fillet me, but I haven't. I've been fortunate not to run into any of them yet. Good morning, H.P. Lovecraft. I believe the judge who sentenced him in the second case was the prosecutor who offered him the deal. In the first case, he can be guilty as hell, but got terrible treatment. Yeah, he got terrible treatment, but now he's on the basis of our justice system. He's sort of getting justice for their fuck up. So there we go. Let's see. Oh, here's another article. House Democrats primed to launch Inquisition to help bolster false insurrection narrative. Article Human Events. Just as you know, they did approve to have a select committee 13-person committee, and the investigation will be led by Democrats. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi would appoint the chairperson and at least 8 of the committee's members. In a memo to House Republicans on Tuesday, Steve Scalise urged members to vote against the resolution, urging the panel is likely to pursue a partisan agenda. Oh, really? They just might do that. Anyway, yeah, so since they couldn't get the Senate to do a joint congressional committee on this, they're doing a select committee just within the House of Representatives. Yippee. Good morning, Fight for Your Rights. How you doing? And Jonas Pedersen, how you doing? I think I said Jonas already. Now, on the other side of the ledger, a prosecution of a George Floyd rioter, and this time in Tennessee. Shirtless redneck was photographed lighting a Nashville courthouse on fire last year during a George Floyd riot. The crystal clear pictures show the defendant Wesley Summers identifying tattoos and all, using an accelerant inside a broken window of the courthouse. This is this him? Oh, this is just the tweet back when the Nashville courthouse has been on fire. Summers was arrested at home on the mean streets of Hendersonville, Tennessee, which is 89.69% white. No word on why he lit the courthouse on fire. Video also shows him assaulting a light pole. Oh, the jokes just come to mind as you read a sentence like that. Anyway, he pled guilty yesterday to malicious destruction of property. The Department of Justice announced a guilty plea in a press release. He's looking to spend a minimum of 5 years in the Huskow. He has a previous arrest for using heroin in his car with 2 children inside. Oh, this guy is just a gem. I'm curious which side he was on when he lit that fire, but anyway, good. He's arrested and perhaps being charged, but maybe he's being charged because
You're fucking a white male!
he just is. Okay, let's keep going. The New York mayor's race debacle still trudges on. A truly surreal situation is unfolding as the votes are being tallied in New York City's mayor's race. It appears that ranked choice voting has reduced the lead of Eric Adams, a former cop and Brooklyn borough president, to just 16,000 votes. On primary night last week, Adams was coasting after receiving 31% of the vote to his closest rival, Catherine Garcia's 19%. But ranked choice voting came into play because Adams didn't receive 50% of the vote. In ranked choice voting, voters can list up to 5 candidates on their ballot in order of preference. If no candidate receives more than 50%, the first choice votes in the first round, the winner is decided by a process of elimination. As the lower polling candidates are eliminated, their votes are reallocated to whichever candidate those voters ranked next. And the process continues until there is a winner, according to the New York Times. The process not only led to voter confusion, but also confused local election officials in New York. After promising to release the first batch of ranked choice ballots Tuesday, the Board of Elections was forced to retract the results because they had accidentally failed to remove 150,000 images of ballots designed to test the ranked choice voting system. Yes, it is a cluster fark, as they write here. And Adams is not happy. Quote, the vote total just released by the Board of Elections is 100,000 plus more than the total announced on election night, raising serious questions, Adam wrote. He questioned the results and the process because he's a black Democrat. It's okay, isn't it? But because he's a black Democrat, it's okay for him to question it. Anyway, this is one of those things that Trump said that the screw-ups in New York City, probably if you can have that big a screw-up in New York City, what's the rest of the country look like? And he's, I don't know. Unfortunately, the former president will not be president again, at least before 2025. And if then. All right, let's move on. Why'd that happen? Senator Maxine Waters. Does anyone know who that is? Oh my God, that would be awful. Biden creates confusion with an offhand remark about a primary run. So he now here, listen to this. Here he is.
Now SRES 15.
Oh, wait a minute. What did he say?
Now SRES 15.
Oh, okay.
Speaker Pelosi, Maxine Waters, and Chewy Garcia.
Yeah, we're here.
Oh,
Wait. Listen to him talk.
Res 15. Speaker Pelosi, Maxine Walters, and Chuy Garcia.
Maxine Walters and who? Chuy Garcia? Oh, okay. That's okay. Chuy Garcia. Is that really his name? Anyway.
I'm kidding, I'm not. All right.
She's a bigger journalist, too.
Hey, Chuy, how are you, man?
How are you? Great to see you.
Senator, I hope.
Senator, I hope. Did you hear that? Senator, I hope. So anyway, President Biden on Wednesday encouraged either Representative Maxine Waters or Representative Jesus Chuy Garcia to run for the Senate, creating a dilemma because incumbent Democrats hold both seats up for re-election in 2022. Yes, in California, that'd be Dianne Feinstein and who's the other one? Who's the other senator for California? I can't remember. Obviously it's not Kamala, but anyway. Oh, did they put anyone in Kamala's place? Who did they put in her place? Anyway, Biden greeted Garcia and Waters, whose name he pronounced Walders, at a bill signing event in the White House adjacent Eisenhower Executive Office building. Yeah, we're here, Waters said to Biden. Hey, Chuy, how are you, man? Biden said. Biden shook Garcia's hand, then shook Waters' hands. Senator, I hope. You think I'm kidding? I'm not, Biden said. Waters, 82 years old, Maxine Waters, shrugged and gave what appeared to be a who knows expressions, indicating he believed Biden was talking to her. If she sought higher office, Waters would have to unseat incumbent Democratic Senator Alex Padilla, who was appointed this year by Governor Gavin Newsom to fill the vacancy created when Kamala Harris became vice president. Padilla has filed to run for a full 6-year term in 2022. Garcia is a relatively low-profile lawmaker, but Waters is known for hot-headed political commentary. The judge presiding over the ex-Minneapolis cop Derek Chauvin's trial for murdering George Floyd. Okay, we know all about that when she was telling her about you should get confrontational and all that shit. Anyway, at 82, I don't think she's going to run for the Senate because she's comfortable in her house seat there in part of Long Beach, and it's a shithole. And I don't think the rest of California would vote for Maxine Waters. Well, maybe they would. It's California. Who knows? All right, moving on. Let me get the last few in here. Trump calls out sick state of the border during a visit to Texas. So he went to the border, and he said, we have a sick country in many ways, Trump said during an event with Texas officials and members of law enforcement. According to The Hill, it's sick in elections and it's sick in the border. If you don't have good elections and if you don't have a strong border, you don't have a country. The former president said he was going to get the real part of the border where there's a real problems, not part where you look around and don't see anybody. So there's some coverage of that. Vice President Kamala Harris did visit the border Friday in El Paso. She was minutes away from a migrant facility at Fort Bliss U.S. Army base that is riddled with problems. It has been described as a tent city in the desert, and officials have expressed concern about suicidal children, but she did not visit the facility. It took Harris 93 days to visit the border after she was appointed by Biden to lead the administration's response. Trump, along with several of his administration officials, accepted Republican Texas Governor Greg Abbott's invitation to visit the southern border. In a statement, the former president slammed Biden's handling of the border and compared his own strict immigration policies to Biden's approach. We went from detain and remove to catch and release, Trump said. We went from having border security that was the envy of the world to a lawless border that is now pitied around the world. Biden and Harris have handed control of our borders over to cartels, criminals, and coyotes, as Vice President Harris might say. A little joke about a little Ron DeSantis and the DeSantis derangement syndrome that's infected the media on the road to 2024. They really, 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 really are nervous about this guy, isn't it? Aren't they? Isn't it crazy how they just constantly glom onto him? Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is far and away the number one choice for president among Republican voters for 2024 if Donald Trump doesn't run for office. In one straw poll at the Western Conservative Summit, DeSantis topped the former president in a head-to-head matchup. But that was one straw polled. In truth, Ron DeSantis is the odds-on favorite even this far out from 2024 primary contest, as long as Trump doesn't run. DeSantis appears to be ready to commit to a run regardless of Trump's availability. Naturally, the media is getting an early start warming up their smear machinery against DeSantis. Their problem so far has been poor marksmanship caused by faulty ammunition. For example, Washington Post reporter Hannah Dreier tried to portray DeSantis' response to the recent collapse of the condo building in South Florida as a failure of the governor's leadership. After posting a summary of FEMA's response to the disaster, she concluded that DeSantis had waited more than 24 hours to send assistance to the victims. There's a saying in emergency management: the first 24 hours are the only 24 hours, she tweeted. FEMA was ready to deploy to the condo collapse almost immediately and included the crisis in its daily briefing, but didn't get permission from DeSantis to get on the ground for a full day. The tweet garnered thousands of likes, but that's not entirely accurate. Let's see. This is missing important context. Hannah Dreier never asked me for comment. Emergency response started within minutes of the disaster, led by Miami-Dade County. Amazing first responders. County mayor signed local emergency declaration 440, and Ron DeSantis signed EO no less than an hour later. So they were on it. If a media smear merchant, you know you've really screwed the pooch when your fellow Democrats pile on. Jared Moskowitz, a Democrat and former director of the Florida Division of Emergency Management, was sharply critical of Dreier's tweet. As the former director in Florida who voted for Biden, this tweet below is 100%, well, she said malarkey, but I say bullshit. By the way, we can go ahead and give, what's his name? I know I haven't done any, or her name, Hannah Dreier. Here she is, right here. Let me take care of this real quick. We're gonna copy and FTG. There we go. Let's FTG Hannah Dreier here. Moskowitz, a Democrat and former director of Florida Division of Florida Emergency Management, was sharply critical of Dreier's tweet. As the former director in Florida who voted for Biden, this tweet below is 100% bullshit, aka malarkey. FEMA would have deployed the federally funded USAR teams, which are located in Miami-Dade County. They were already there, Moskowitz wrote. Others appears to accuse DeSantis of causing the building's collapse, despite there being no link between any of the governor's actions and the building's deterioration. Some reports have indicated that the condo tower developers were once accused of paying off local officials for permits. As bad as this attempted assassination was, we can't top the 60 Minutes hit piece on DeSantis that received withering criticism from Democrats and Republicans alike for its selective editing. These stories suggested there was a link in a large donation by the supermarket chain Publix and the state using stores to distribute stupid 19 vaccines. At the time, CNN reported, but beyond spotlighting the public finance records, 60 Minutes never offered any substantive evidence to support the significant assertion and link the donation with the partnership. The outrage was bipartisan. So, this dude from the Florida Division of Emergency Management has twice defended DeSantis on stupid shit like this. What the hell was that? That was a weird noise. In fact, DeSantis received grudging praise from Democrats for his handling of the coronavirus and especially for his rollout of the vaccines. He put age before race, ordering that senior citizens be given the vaccine before essential workers, as recommended by the CDC. Florida's economy has recovered more quickly than almost anywhere else and is currently booming. Anyway, you can read the rest. Well, there's not much left, but you know what? He's the one. He seems to be the one. Plus the fact he is very good at answering questions in the spur of the moment and with detail. He must have some sort of photographic memory because he remembers details like nobody I've ever seen answer questions, and he doesn't shy away from any question. He will answer questions very, very directly, and that's a good thing. And for people hate him because he's a Republican, but look out, world. We might be here's a possibility. Anyway, let's keep going. Oh, this is another one on DeSantis. I'm gonna skip this one, but another one on how the hit pieces keep coming and they're all swing and a miss. That's kind of the same couple stories there. All right, what's left in the tabs? I'm not going to get to them, but the ATF director, that nominee, apparently has deleted thousands of tweets from his Twitter page. And this is the guy, remember this guy, what the hell's his name? David Chipman. He was one of the ATF people who was involved in Ruby Ridge and Waco, and he's been known to donate to many anti-gun groups. Well, apparently he's been deleting a ton of tweets, and so now people want to know what are we missing here? Because he had set his Twitter account to private because of violent threats I had received in the past, as if public officials don't get violent threats all the time. But anyway, you can read that article in the Federalist. It'll be in the links down below. Apparently now, Canadians, maybe some of my Canadian friends here can confirm, but Canada moves to ban hate speech online, punishable by a $40,000 fine. Last week, Canada's Liberal Party, headed by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, proposed new legislation to criminalize hate speech online, punishable by a $50,000 fine, roughly $40,000 US, paid to the government. Government officials, including the Attorney General and the Minister of Public Safety, announced the new bill on Wednesday. Good Lord, Canadians, what the hell's going on up there? There, that's all I got to say. FTG, Justin Trudeau. All right, I'm going to move on because that is my last one today. That's my last story for the day. But I don't have time to get into it too deep because it's that time. You know what I'm saying? Hey, gang, we have one more day in the week, and that'd be Friday. Uh-oh. Did I just, what happened here? Did I die? Uh-oh. Can y'all still see me? I got an error on this. I'm going to refresh this. I'm assuming the stream's still going because you guys are still commenting. Okay, it's working just fine. All right, anyway, it's time for me to go, gang. So, by the way, I'll be back here tomorrow, 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central, like every Monday through Friday, right? And if you would be so kind, if you haven't done so already, hit the like button. You know how that works. And share the stream even before, during, after, or if you're watching a replay, share the stream anyway. Anytime you share the stream, somebody might put some eyes on it, and then it helps the channel grow, and it helps me keep going. And I greatly appreciate that. And if you want to sponsor the show, you can figure that out by reading the description a little bit. After the show today, like every day, there's a single link under the initial description of this. There's a first paragraph, which is the description of the show. Immediately under that, on the daily, every story that I put out or read, or every video or whatever, I put in a single link called a one-tab link. If you want to go back and read some of those stories, if you're doing videos of your own, if you're doing research for a blog or something else that you do, or you just want to be, get a little deeper into the story, all those will be in the link called the one-tab link just below that first initial description there. So I'll have it up probably by the end of the outro, like I do most days. And I also post it in the chat before I go, and I also posted on the Discord server with the daily posting of the daily show. So just a reminder, if you're ever looking for some of these stories, I always post them for your convenience. And on that note, thanks everybody for being here today. Everyone participating in the chat. If you're watching on replay, put a comment in the comment section, or if you come back to watch the beginning of the show because y'all missed it, throw a comment in the comment section about something. That's it for today. Thank you, sponsors today. Black Hebrew Israelite, Furry Kitten. Greatly appreciate that. Welcome to the show, TOS, as a new subscriber. I gotta go. My name is PDawgKnight. And I'm out of here. Bye-bye. Hey, this is PDawgKnight, and thank you for watching today on the PDawgKnight channel. If you have an observation or remark you'd like to make about this video or my channel, I absolutely welcome you to write it in the comment section down below. I really look forward to hearing from you. And before you go, if you like what you saw but you're not already subscribed, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and definitely click that bell that pops up afterwards so you'll be notified when I post new videos or when we go live. I broadcast my live show, The Morning Night Live, Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central. A special thank you to all the supporters of this channel who share our videos on social media and who make donations through Streamlabs, YouTube, Venmo, and Cashapp, which are all linked in the description down below. Thanks again, and until next time, I'm PDawgKnight, and I'm out of here.